Okay, welcome to the Virtual Business Owners Network on Friday, the 12th of April. And we have a talk here presented by my good self called Three-Stage Process to Get More Business. And I'm going to give you a quick presentation on this and to share some knowledge. So there we go. Hang on a sec. Can everybody see that? Yep, cool. Right. That's what it is. One of the greatest challenges we all have in business, and we all do it, and we all make the same mistakes, is presumption. Presumption is one of the most costliest behavior to have. And whether we're buying or whether we're selling, we all have it in us. So I want to just highlight this because I'm going to give an example, a real life example of how to keep an open view when you're talking to potential customers. The reason for this is, are we actually seeing the same thing? We meet somebody and we see it through one lens, they see it through another. But the most important part is if we're not connecting that lens, that we see the same picture that they want, the outcome that they want if we're selling a product or service, then we're way off. And our presumption is that we think we understand what it is. So let me give you an example of this from a design perspective, and Nick will be familiar with it. As I said, I won't go into the details, but this is just a broad strokes. I remember quite some time ago, must have been 15 years, 20 years ago, two or three young lads came into us. They'd set up their own company and they were in the area of technology. And what they did is they sat down with us and said, we would like a brochure. So their presumption was they wanted a brochure. So we asked the question, why? As opposed to just taking the brief to give them a brochure, as a lot of design businesses have a tendency to do. I'm talking about the less experienced ones. Because, okay, thanks very much. You want a brochure, we'll deliver a brochure. There's your brochure. Now, the outcome of that is they get a brochure and they go to use it for where they think they can get some benefit from it, and it fails. And then they wonder why it fails. From the design perspective, unless they're a repeat clients, do they really care? Yeah, certain people don't really care. But by asking why, what we discovered was that they were very sort of technically literate and wanted to meet, I think, 5 to 7 CEOs of top tech companies in the US. And they thought that by buying a brochure and sending it, this would open the door into them. And we quickly were able to dampen down that enthusiasm to the point that that's not going to happen. These people get brochures all the time. What else have you got? And during the course of us talking with them, it turned out one of them had written a paper on a particular piece of information that was of great value to this potential audience that they were targeting. And the questions were asked, would they read this if they got it? Certainly. I mean, this is sort of innovative. It's stuff that they will really sort of buy into. So we said, fine. So what we did is Nick with his team there took that information and designed it into a piece that was then sent to these CEOs of the various companies. And the net result was they got the meetings, all of the meetings they wanted. And so if we take it, the presumption on both sides, just to give you to wrap this piece up here, that they presume they need a brochure. If we presume they need a brochure, they would have got a brochure and not got the result. But by investigating a bit further, we were able to understand what their challenge was, and then to give them a solution that was more applicable and more effective to them getting what they desired in the end. So that was the effective part of that. So the question I have for you is this: have you a set of prepared questions that when you go to meet somebody who has a new piece of business for you, that will unearth the information that you need, that will enable you to present a solution to them, either by product or service, that is relevant and that they'll pay for? The second question around all of that is, will you be doing all of the talking? And I don't know how often I see this at meetings, where somebody comes in and they drop into this old sales mode of talking. So the potential client customer has said a few words that they have a bit of a challenge. And instead of shutting up and exploring that in more detail, they jump in with some sort of solution, they think. And then they find that 2 or 3 are involved in the process and that they don't get the business at the end of it and wonder why not. Often what is presented to you is not the problem. We're not looking for the problem. We're looking for the impact of the problem and how it has an effect on the individuals or people around that want to buy this issue. So another key important piece of this is, have you done your homework? Am I actually talking to the right person? Is this a decision maker? Is this somebody that can say yay or nay to this thing? Because once you find that you've done all the hard work in eliciting what the information is that you think you need, to suddenly find that they go to the person above them and get permission for them to engage with you and maybe create a purchase order. And I'll take another example from the days back in Baseline with Nick, and he'll remember it. We were quite surprised of what happened, that one of the rival companies, and when I say rival, it's friendly rivalry that we have, but a very, very good, reputable design agency had created a brand for a company that had directors in various places, but one of them was based in Hong Kong. And what we were told is, could you have a look at this brand and maybe change it? This whole new identity that had been created. Can you look at this and maybe change it to be more applicable? And we looked at it, and Nick, again, with his expert eye, looked up and says, I just don't see anything wrong with this. What is the problem? And then we found out that there was a director based in Hong Kong who had been left out of the whole decision-making process and had got the hump. So the well-known agency who did a great job got the bump out, and we were asked to step in. All right, thanks. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. What was done was really good. Maybe we'll just give it a tweak just to satisfy this guy in Hong Kong. But that he was our first port of call. And so we talked to him, found out what his input was, made some necessary adjustments for that, and he was happy. But that's the important thing of asking the right questions. Who is actually involved in the decision-making process? Because if you get caught on that, you can do a lot of hard work to suddenly find that you've been left out in a limb and you're not going to get the business. So the next thing is about the impact. It's all about the impact of the problem that the people are talking to you about. They've called you because you have a solution or believe you have a solution. What the careful thing is not to go in and try and dangle what you think initially is the solution without understanding what the real impact is. I've used this story before because it's a real one and it's relevant. And I talked about somebody I knew, he was a client of mine in the alarm installation business. And somebody came to him and he'd asked me about it. And he said, this guy's come to me, has two shops. The alarms are old systems there. And he's come and said, can you give me two cheap alarms because I need to replace them? And I said to him, listen, when are you meeting him again? He said, in a couple of days' time. I said, let's find out the impact. So when he came back, what we discovered was this, that in one of the shops in particular, the alarm had a habit of being triggered maybe once a week, at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, the shop was only maybe a half mile down the road, so it wasn't that far away from it, but it was an inconvenience. But it was only when you delved in further into the impact of it that you started to see the real picture. And when he was pressed, he was asked, well, what is the impact? Well, the impact is I'm having to get up at maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and go down, excuse me, open up the shutters, make sure everything's okay, reset the alarms, close the shutters and come back. How is that impacting your life? Well, the impact of that is my wife's usually awake, and sometimes the kids are awake, and she won't go back to sleep until I'm home. And what's happened is this is draining me now. I'm getting a bit tired, and we're starting to snip at each other a bit, just a bit short-tempered through tiredness. And we never had this before. So having heard all of that, my alarm guy said to him, let me put forward a suggestion to you. If you had an alarm system based in your shop that went off, and you had the ability from a mobile phone or device on the side of your bed to be able to turn on a camera in the shop, turn on the lights, turn on a camera, see that everything's okay and reset the alarm to go back to sleep in 5 minutes, what would be the impact of that on your life? Naturally, he didn't go and buy the cheap alarms anymore. But what had happened was that through understanding what the real impact of what the solution needed to deliver allowed my guy to sell a much more uplifted system in terms of price and everything, but it also solved the problem in a much more successful way. In terms of sitting down with people, if you ask the right questions, and it's the 80-20 rule, you should be speaking 20% of the time and listening and taking notes. And I can't overemphasize the importance of taking notes. And always ask the question, do you mind if I take some notes around this? It just makes people feel more at ease. Or if it's something that's, confidential, to say, listen, everything we're speaking about here is confidential. And do you mind if I take some notes? What we want to do also in the course of this conversation is so understand, first of all, what is the problem they think they have? And if we delve down, what is the impact of that problem? And if we delve down further, what is the real pain? Is it a monetary pain, or is it a pain that really affects them in some other way? There's many different ways of looking at this, but ultimately, you should be looking to get to the figure. What is your budget? Now, I think we all know, and we've all been at this. You talk to people, we don't have a budget. But of course you do. It's a bit like going into a travel agent and saying, I want to go on a holiday. Myself, the missus and the two kids want to go on holiday. What's your budget? We don't have a budget. So we can take you on a personalized trip to Kathmandu, or we can take you down to a caravan in Cortown. You have a budget. Which one fits you? So they'll say, we've 2.5, 3 grand. Why wouldn't you say it in business what your budget is? Because it's like going to a car showroom. I want to buy a car. Well, will we show you a Mini, or will we show you something from the Rolls-Royce collection? Be realistic. And you need to nail people down. And if they don't give you a budget, you can say, based on what you told me, can I suggest that you would need to have a budget of 5,000 to 6,000 euros? Now, if there's a sharp intake of breath and, oh God, we wouldn't have that at all. What you're discovering is this problem is really not as big as they thought it was. Or else you need to say what part of a particular solution is not important to you. What bits could we leave out? Ultimately, what you want to get is a figure that they feel comfortable with. And I'll explain that when we go down in a minute. Okay. The next, stage 2. Oh, that's not stage, there's stage 2. Verification of what was said in that meeting. Now, you can do that in one of 2 ways. You can say to them, I've taken some notes as you've seen here. Do you mind if I recap these notes? My understanding of what your challenge, issue, blah, blah, blah is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My understanding of the impact is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My understanding of if you've got a solution and it solved this would be that, and you have a budget of that. And can you see where we're going with this? So what I want to do is make sure we have no presumption on either side, that we're both on the same page and we're both seeing the particular challenge through the same lens. Now, you can do that after the meeting. It'll only take a minute or 2, but you want that focus on it. And when you get back, turn that into an email and say, based on our meeting today, you confirm the following details. If I've overlooked or missed anything, here it is. The proposal will be with you tomorrow, the day after, when you decided to send a proposal. Now, what do we know? We know the issue, we know it in detail, we know the budget that they have, we know the impact of it, we know the impact of the solution we have. We've got confirmation that they're the right person, we've got confirmation that what we've discussed is correct. Now put together the proposal. And this is the piece that causes most businesses a lot of challenges. But I want you to think about it. We've already made the proposal in the sum up of the notes. So the proposal should be, and again, I'm suggesting this, if you have your own way and you're happy with it, fine. But typical proposals have a tendency to be all about us. Yeah, welcome to Alec Drew. I've been in business more than X number of years. We've worked with these companies, blah, 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 blah. They don't care. They don't care. They've already looked you up. But when you open up with a proposal, many thanks for the meeting we had, our understanding of the situation, of the problem, blah, 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 that you identify is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our understanding of the impact of that is whatever it is. or understanding that if a solution was produced, it would give you that outcome. We talked about a budget of that, and then a call to action. Now, if you look at what's happened here, they can't disagree with you, because all you've done is told them back what they said to you in the first place. And if you've been listening and taking the notes, you have already created the proposal as you're sitting there talking to them. So there's nothing there in terms of disagreement. And more importantly, the price issue has been dealt with, because as we all know, when proposals come in, the first place that people go to is the page that has the price on it. And if they're taking a sharp intake of breath at the price, there's less likelihood they're going to read all the bits that you did beforehand in terms of solving the problem. All they see is the price. But when the price has been discussed in that meeting and they look at it, it fits with what they heard already. Does that make sense for everybody on it? And the final piece then is a call to action to make sure that I will call you to discuss this in further details. Can we arrange a meeting on blah, blah, blah. And in essence, that's it. I'm going to go for questions and answers after that, but hopefully that was of some value to you all there, and I'll stop sharing. And that's it. Thanks very much indeed. Hiya, Jimmy, welcome.